adding a sense of depth to designs is a little bit more interesting than the traditional flat layout, which is kind of on its way out anyway. So in the 15 years that I've been building websites, there have been lots of different trends, but this is one of those ones that I think is coming back into fashion now, and I think it's worth embracing it for what it can bring to the table. So what am I talking about? Well, we're going to take a look at adding a sense of depth to our overall designs. So for example, you can see with this pretty flat looking layout, but as we hover over and we get some interaction with these different elements, you see we get this effect that it raises up off the page, we get a drop shadow, it highlights, and it kind of looks like it separates itself from the background. It's a pretty cool little effect, nothing complicated, but it looks pretty neat. Now you can use the same kind of technique in lots of different areas. For example, if we come to my drop down, you can see this uses a similar technique. We've got this kind of extended shadow that makes it look like it stands off even further from the page, adding an extra sense of depth. Depth and realism is something that's definitely coming back into fashion and into trend right now. So it's worth taking a look at embracing these different techniques. Now for our example, I'm going to be using Bricks Builder, but you don't need to. The technique is far more important than the tools being used. So if you use Elementor, if you use something like CSS, you can do the same kind of thing as I'm going to do here. But if you'd like me to cover other tools, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll take a look at creating something if enough people are interested. Okay, so first things first, we need to be able to select the element that we want to work with. In this example, I've got my structure panel open, and what I need to do is come down and choose the card wrapper. If I select that, you see all 6 boxes are selected. What we're doing here is we're using global classes, which is one of the benefits of using something like bricks. So now when I make a change to one, the other 5 will also have exactly the same changes affecting them because it's using that global class. Okay, so once that's set, we're just going to make sure the class is selected. You can see that's highlighted in the top left. And now we can start creating things. So the first thing we want to do is switch this over into the hover mode. So it's a pseudo class. I'll show you what I mean now. So come over, we'll choose hover from the list. And now whatever we do is only going to affect the hover state of any of these cards. So first things first, let's go to our background. And I want to make this a lighter background to sort of stand off. So we'll come into our colors. We'll choose our global color. So as you can see, I've got all of my colors set up as part of my framework. So I'm going to select this lighter shade. You can see all 6 boxes now are affected. Don't worry, we're just changing all of them because they all use the same class. So there's the first part of it done. So the next thing we need to do now is create that shadow. So the easiest way of doing that is come into the box shadow section, open this up and click to add a box shadow in. So we'll select that from the list. And now we have a couple of options. Now this is the quickest, the simplest, and probably the least effective way if you want to make it realistic. But it'll do for now, just so I can demonstrate things. So first things first, let's choose our color. Now, because we're dealing with like a pinkish red on top of a red background, we don't really want to use a plain old black or dark gray shade. We want to use something that's as part of our design. So let's open up our colors one more time. And as you can see, I've got these various different shades of my primary color, this red color. So we're going to choose one of the darker shades. I'll go for this one, this primary 5. And I'm going to drop the opacity down a little bit, say to about 50% to start off with to see how that looks. Now nothing's showing up because we haven't actually set any blur, spread or anything like that. So let's set our blur to something like 20. And now you can see that shadow. Adjust the spread if we want to, set that to be something like 5. And if you want to, you can set an offset on the X or Y. It's up to you how you want to do it. I'm not going to worry about it in this example. So we're going to say we're happy with that effect. We'll come back out of our pseudo class and we're going to save this and take a look. So we're back onto our test page, and as you can see, as I hover over, we now get that shadow effect. But it looks a little bit abrupt. It's not the nicest effect where it just kind of just pops in and pops out. Let's make it look a little bit smoother. Again, coming back into Bricks Builder, what we're going to do is make sure we've got our class selected. Now we're not in the hover state, we're in the normal state at the moment. So we're going to come into our CSS section, and from there, we're going to come down to where it says transition, and we're going to put 0.5s in there, or half a second. We'll copy that. We're going to switch over now into our pseudo class state. So we're going to put back into hover state, and we're going to do exactly the same thing there. So it's in both of these. Now let's save this, jump over into our test, and now you'll see when we hover over, we get a much smoother transition on the way in and the way out. Pretty cool. Now let's just say you want to actually make the shadow effect look a little bit more realistic. There are a couple of ways you can achieve that. You could use a free online generator like the CSS multiple box shadow generator. And as you can see, we've got all the same controls for the horizontal, vertical, blur, spread, and so on, the color. But what we can do here is we can add extra shadows in. So we can stack multiple shadows and affect each shadow independently. So you can see we can adjust the horizontal position, the vertical position, the blur, colors. You kind of get the idea. So this is one way in which you could actually edit things, which is pretty cool. So if you don't have access to the tool I'm going to show you what I'm going to use, you could use this to get a very similar effect. And then you could simply copy those values from here and we could apply those to the actual class itself. So if you want to see how that's done, we'll just grab this, copy it, go back into Bricks Builder, making sure that we've got our card wrapper selected. We're still in the hover state. And what we can do now is, first of all, let's get rid of the shadow effect on here so we don't have two lots. So we'll just get rid of that. So now we have no shadow effect. Come into our CSS. We're going to come down. We're going to add root in this. So we're only affecting the card wrapper itself. And we'll paste that little bit of shadow in. Now, obviously, it looks absolutely terrible because we had that green effect. But I just want to show you how it can be applied. That's it. And if you're using something along the lines of Elementor, you can also apply custom CSS there. You just have to modify it a little bit. Let's clear that from there, though. So what I can do is I can use the box shadow option and I can come into the box shadow generator, which is part of Advanced Themer. Cool thing with this is I get basically the same as we've seen in that online free generator, but it's all done inside Bricks. Let me show you. Making sure, like I say, we've got the hover state selected. We'll open the box generator up. From there, we'll come in and we can see we've got all the options inside here, so we can customize this to our heart's content. Or what makes this even better, in my opinion, is we can come out to the presets. So I can choose a preset. There's all the different presets I have available. So I can scroll through until I find something I like. So let's say I want to go for something a little bit more over the top in this example. So let's try something like this. We'll say import those layers. And now you can see this imports that into the editor. And now if I want to, I can adjust things like the shadow color. Now currently there's two layers being used here. So let's just edit one of them. So we'll choose this. Let's say I've got this red color. I want to darken this down a little bit. And adjust the opacity if I want to. If I come into my second layer, you can see I can do the same here, and I can adjust any of the values from here. So if I wanted to, I could go really crazy with this and add a kind of blue tint to it. Looks awful, but you see what I mean. You could do it if you want to. But for this example, like I say, let's go back to our reddish colors. Let's adjust those. And let's say I'm happy with the look of that. All I need to do now is say apply that box shadow. That's now being applied. I can simply hit save. And now when we reload and take a look, you can see now we get the effect that we want. So this looks even more realistic because we've created a multi-layered shadow. I know this is probably a little bit overkill maybe, but once you see how good these shadow effects look and how easy they are to create, whether you want to use something like Bricks and Advanced Themer or you just want to use the online generator, they just look a lot more realistic. So that's how easy it is to go and create things like this. Now, if you want to find out how to create great effects like this glass morphism effect, check out this video next. It's a pretty cool effect. Again, all done using CSS. As always, all applicable links in the description. My name is Paul C. This is WPTuts. Until next time, take care.